Hi, everyone. Welcome to GoLocal Live. I'm GoLocal News editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for tuning in this Tuesday afternoon for news and politics. I'd like to thank GoLocal regular Jennifer Lawless down at the University of Virginia for Skyping in. Jennifer, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
We're doing just dandy up here. Glad we can pick your brain about D.C. politics as always. Let's start with what is moving through Congress and their role in either approving or disapproving of President Donald Trump's declaration of a national emergency. So, House taking action first, then moving to the Senate. All eyes on the Senate and the Republican side.
Right. So the House already said that they don't think that this is a constitutional move and they oppose it. The question is whether the senators are going to cling to their partisanship or whether they're going to be more worried about what could happen when a Democrat occupies the White House. Mitch McConnell, for example, just today said that he's not really sure that it's a constitutional move and he's not really sure that he can support it. And this is obviously because there are Republicans who are very worried that if Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden or Kamala Harris is the next person in the Oval Office, they could be facing a precedent where national emergencies are declared over issues like climate change or gun violence. And that's certainly not something that they would want. So generally speaking, we often see the political parties tie their own hands to prevent and havoc from being wrought in the future. But everything is sort of an open question with Donald Trump, and it's unclear what he would do and how he would try to punish people that voted against this declaration.
So with it now in the Senate, and if they get enough Republicans to, again, oppose the President Trump on this, what then of his declaration and his grasp, again, trying to get more funding for his wall?
Well, it's a little bit unclear what happens at that point because the emergency declaration is a way for him to use funds from other pockets to provide money for the wall. It's unclear how much access he has to that money if he doesn't issue a national emergency, and some of that money might actually be open to him. It also creates an incentive for him to work more closely with Republicans and Democrats to put together a deal that might make everybody happy. That said, he has demonstrated that when it comes to this issue anyway, he's probably the worst deal maker anybody has ever seen in Washington. And so it doesn't really seem like the Democrats have much of an incentive to provide anything. So I think it's really a crapshoot. He's anticipating, that the courts will weigh in on this. I'm not sure that he's anticipating that the Senate and the House would both vote no.
Do we have any a sense on time frame in the Senate, Jennifer?
We don't. I mean, if I were going to guess, I would assume that Mitch McConnell does not really want to have this vote anytime soon. But getting it out of the way is like ripping off a Band-Aid. So, it might also be a way to take some of the attention away from Michael Cohen's testimony and the Mueller investigation more broadly. So, I think there are pros and cons for doing it quickly and for delaying.
And let's talk a little bit about Michael Cohen's testimony in Congress. The news today, Michael Cohen disbarred in the state of New York.
I think that's appropriate. When we think about lawyers that have been disbarred for lying under oath, Bill Clinton is at the top of that list. And so, he lied not really about national secrets or campaign finance reform violations. He just lied about an affair. And he was president when he did it. So, I don't think that this disbarment is anything that's too surprising. The open question is what we're going to find out tomorrow when Cohen testifies before Congress.
And let's talk a little bit about that. It appears that the White House, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, already in spin mode trying to discredit, of course, anything Michael Cohen has to say. So do we take what Michael Cohen says at face value if he's been found to have lied under oath?
I don't think we take it at face value. I think we take it with a grain of salt. And there are a couple of things to keep in mind. The first is that Mueller and his team found a lot of what Cohen said credible, and they came to that determination because they were able to corroborate his stories and his statements with testimony from other witnesses as well as actual tapes and other audio evidence. So we know that the Mueller team determined that Cohen was telling the truth about quite a bit of these questions and the material that he's going to be covering. Second, Cohen's going to jail. He has nothing to lose at this point. He only has to gain by cooperating. If he is seen as helping the House, if he's seen as helping the Intelligence Committee, if he's seen as remaining a credible, important witness to the Mueller investigation, the judge can continue to knock time off that sentence. And everything suggests that that's what he wants. But he also knows that everything he says is going to be assessed really, really closely and scrutinized under a microscope. So if he lies, any deal is off. He really has no incentive to lie. He has every incentive to tell the truth.
Let's talk a little bit about that. There's some speculation that he might have some sort of bombshell on the president, if you will. You know, if Cohen goes before Congress and sort of delivers something jaw-dropping, I mean, how much of that actually then, in fact, has to be parsed?
That's not going to happen. I've been thinking about it. This is not going to be a scene out of the movies like Legally Blonde when you wind up getting Reese Witherspoon's character, you know, to get the person on the witness stand to admit that she was the murderer. That's not happening.
There's no bombshell? There's no Michael Cohen bombshell?
I don't think so. I think that generally speaking, everything that we hear, we're going to know. The new pieces of information we might find out are why he felt like he had to lie, and specifically whether anybody ordered him to lie or whether he sort of just picked up on that. But I think anything beyond that, especially if it's very important to the investigation, will be topics that are out of bounds or that he's not able to speak to, because that's part of the deal that he's arranged with the Mueller team.
Okay, well, all eyes will be on Congress when Michael Cohen does testify. Let's go a little more international. Of course, President Donald Trump meeting with Kim Jong-un. As folks who watch GoLocal Live know, we had the opportunity to catch up last week with Professor Dr. Terrence Roehrig at the Naval War College, a real expert on the Korean Peninsula. He laid out a couple of things to watch while these two meet, including the definition of denuclearization and if there is, in fact, a finite time frame agreed to. What's the expectation coming out of this current summit?
Well, based on early reports, all of which have been anonymous, it seems that it's already a deal that the U.S. has lost. The early intelligence or the early gossip coming out of the summit is that the United States is probably going to agree to lift a fair number of sanctions, and Kim Jong-un is going to agree to shut down at least one nuclear facility. That's a lot different than agreeing to denuclearize. Trump needs a win here, though, and so I wouldn't be surprised if whatever the deal is, it's framed as something that only he was able to negotiate, and it's part of the reason that there hasn't been nuclear war up until this point.
Is there sort of a level, a litmus test, if you will? There's, of course, all this speculation with Trump and eyeing a Nobel Peace Prize. Is there really any potential for that here in what we're seeing between the U.S. and North Korea?
I'm willing to go on the record and say that there is no set of circumstances under which Donald Trump wins a Nobel Peace Prize. It's not happening. And part of the reason it's not happening is because even if he's able to make nice with North Korea, and even if he's able to ward off that threat, and it's unclear that he is able to, or that that deal would materialize, almost the entire rest of the world is offended by or put off by the United States' current foreign policy. And so, I think when you think about a Nobel Peace Prize, there's sort of a more holistic set of criteria involved.
Well, we're going to be continuing to keep an eye on D.C. international, of course, local politics, and we'll catch up with you next week when there'll be a whole other set of topics, I'm sure, to discuss. So, Jennifer Lawless, thank you for taking the time to Skype in.
Of course.
Okay, we'll let Jennifer Lawless go down at the University of Virginia. We're going to get a lot more local here with Robin Garceau. So be right back here on GoLocal Live.